The taxpayers who are working today are paying for all of the people that are coming across.
Is that true? Economist Ben Powell is the author of the new book, The Economics of Immigration. So, Ben, is that true? He's saying these immigrants are being paid for by taxpayers.
The responsible scholarly studies look at what an immigrant pays in taxes over their life, as well as what they or their children immediately consume in social services. And they also look at the ripple effects through the U.S. economy. But when economists estimate the gains to opening up for immigration in the world economy, they're talking about, on average, a doubling of world GDP. It's just a tremendous wealth creation.
The National Research Council said a typical immigrant does impose a fiscal cost of $3,000 himself, but the descendants of the immigrant have a positive contribution of $80,000. And certainly Social Security and Medicare will go broke much more quickly if we don't bring in young immigrants.
The Social Security and Medicaid system are necessarily depend on bringing more people into the system. It's a Ponzi scheme, and immigrants help prop that up. But when we look at immigrants over their entire lifetime of paying of taxes, it's about a wash in most of the studies.
The people who say they take jobs, it's logical. They do take some jobs. So what's your answer to that?
Yeah, that on net, they don't take jobs. Immigrants both take jobs and create jobs.
The seen versus the unseen. Explain that.
You can take this camera that I'm looking at right now, and you can stick it on somebody who used to do, say, landscaping, and you can say, I used to do this job, and look, there's an immigrant doing that job right now. That's the display. But also, it frees up American labor to do the things that we're better suited to do, and that creates jobs. But those jobs are statistical, because jobs are created because of technological changes, changes in resource costs, all sorts of things. So it's hard to stick a camera on the person who got the job. But it's certainly real. Just think about what's happened to the size of the labor force since the end of World War II. We've had massive entry of women, baby boomers, and after 1965, immigrants into the workforce. We've roughly tripled the size of the civilian labor force. But we've seen no long-term increase in unemployment. As we've almost tripled the number of workers, we've almost tripled the number of jobs. We have a limitless desire for goods and services. As we get more workers, we put them to work doing those things.
And if you look at what immigrants have given us, the list is amazing. Google searches, IKEA furniture, YouTube, bicycles, blenders, ATMs, blow dryers, basketball and football. It's hard to imagine how many jobs were created by these new ideas. It's easy to see the jobs lost.
Even the low-skilled ones who don't create businesses that create jobs perform tasks that their labor is better suited to than the American labor. The case for more immigration to the United States as an economic gain to us is the exact same as for international trade in goods and services. It's not about net number of jobs, it's about changing the mix of jobs so that the native-born citizens do the things we're better suited to do. When the brain surgeon hires an immigrant to mow his lawn, that frees him up to do more brain surgeries, making us more productive. Americans simply don't want to do the jobs at the wages that those jobs are offered at. And at higher wages, those jobs often simply wouldn't exist. We've had cases where in response to increased border restriction, farmers couldn't get migrant workers across the Mexican border that they were used to, and they left crops in the ground to rot instead of paying higher wages in order to have them harvested.
Some people say, well, this has worked in the past because we had mostly European immigrants. Ann Coulter says, yeah, when I gave her that list of all the things immigrants have brought us, those were people from Europe. But the brown people don't assimilate. They don't invent things. Show me the Mexican Google.
If you took the exact same sentences, you could plug in the word Italian or Irish or Polish as you go back in time. When you hit a peak wave of migration, these are the type of claims that are made by people. If someone's noticed, net migration from Mexico has turned negative in recent years. More of them are going back than coming here. If Trump puts up his wall, he better make sure there's doors on both sides of it. What we have in the United States is a shortage of low-skilled workers when we look around the world.
Donald Trump won support saying immigrants are criminals, and several Republican candidates complain about immigrants committing crimes.
Some do, but the vast majority come to the United States to make a better life for themselves and their families. And it seems to me a whole lot more sensible, instead of excluding all that might commit a crime someday, let them come here if they want to be workers in the American economy. And if someone demonstrates that they don't have respect for individual liberty, life, and property by committing violent crimes, send them back home. That, to me, seems a whole lot more sensible than saying, we won't let any of you in because some of you might be bad apples.
Thank you, Ben Powell.